This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, make sure you tune into our YouTube channel. We have got all 400 and I don't know how many episodes uploaded to our YouTube channel, and you can watch as well as listen. Now, if you're in the car, you're on the train, well, I guess if you're on the train, you can watch. I used to listen to podcasts back when I had my iPod Shuffle or whatever it was on the train back and forth to Manhattan. But now with video being everything that's on our phone, you can watch the PR Podcast as well as listen. So search YouTube for the PR Podcast. Make sure you put the in there because there's only one the PR Podcast, and you can watch our episodes as well as listen. Now on with our show for today. We have got a terrific guest. Liz Burke is an award-winning communications specialist who wears multiple hats. She's a news professional who does reporter work for News 12 Long Island, and she's an adjunct professor of journalism at Hofstra University here on Long Island. Now, Liz also spent some time in her career working in public relations, so she's seen it from both sides. It lets her bring real newsroom credibility into the classroom. She teaches everything from reporting and news writing to editing and ethics, all grounded in her hands-on experience covering local news for broadcast audiences. Beyond print and television, Liz also engages audiences on social media, especially TikTok and Instagram, under the handle Liz Burke TV. Make sure you search that and follow her. Where she shares behind-the-scenes clips and short videos that break down strong reporter techniques, from crafting tight sound bites to delivering confident on-camera reads and explaining how to structure a clear narrative in a short video format. Liz, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here.
It's great to have you here. I love your social content because you give practical, hands-on tips of being a reporter in front of a camera. Like, here's how to do a stand-up. Here's what you can do with your hands. Here's how you can use the camera to tell a more effective story. What made you translate all of your reporter experience into that social media format?
Well, first off, I believe that it was a necessity because the budding journalists, my students at Hofstra University, they are trying to learn this profession, enhance their craft. And where are they? They're not watching TV. They are watching TikTok, for example. So I knew that I had to join TikTok, learn as much as I could about the platform. I'm still learning, and apply the techniques that I'm teaching in the classroom to the online audience. And so far, it's worked out really well in terms of input. And I know that some of my students are following me online, on Instagram, on TikTok. So they can not only learn from me in the classroom, but they can learn from me on social media. So you need to be where they are.
Having your students follow you on social media might be a little dangerous, right? But I'm sure they love it.
In the beginning, I was a little bit skeptical about that, but I realized quickly that it really is needed because that's where they are. And, you know, as long as everyone is professional in this capacity, I don't see anything wrong with it. As long as I'm informing, educating, I think it's a good collaboration in terms of the interaction with the students.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, I think it's really terrific content. It is practical, it is educational, and I think it's must watch for anyone who aspires to be a TV or even just a video journalist. I mean, probably won't be just TV anymore. It's social media too. You know, it's anything standing in front of a camera. There are still, and this is what I feel like you bring to this, is sort of very human ways to tell the story, to be effective in telling the story. Because you tell me, right? TV packages have gone from 20 years ago, we were at 2 minutes. We're probably down to like a minute and change at this point, right? Everything's shrinking.
30 seconds, and sometimes a minute and 15 seconds. Wow. And now you need to take that story and make it consumable for social media. And there is a craft to that. That is a skill set that students need to learn and young journalists need to learn and new journalists.
Do you find that there's a way to write for, I was a radio reporter, right? There's a way to write for radio, there's a way to write for TV, and of course there are ways to write for other mediums, print and etc. And depending on their, they're all different. What are some of the things that you think of when you're writing your TV package script? How are you telling that story?
Sure. So in my mind, I am putting my story together with the elements that I need for the TV package. So those are the interviewees, those are the sound bites, those short excerpts from the interviews, pieces of B-roll, maybe there's a really good piece of video. And then I can take those elements from my full news story, from my news package, and post short elements on social media from the field as I'm covering a story. So if I arrive, let's say, to breaking news, a house fire, and there are flames flaring, I can take video of that and I can post that on social media and notify that there is breaking news in this town and that this house fire is going on. And then as I'm working in the field, step by step, as the story progresses, I can keep posting those elements in consumable ways for social media. But of course, making sure that I am adhering to the journalism code of ethics. I have the foundation of the story. I have all of my facts sourced. All of that attribution needs to be part of it as well.
That is an important thing, I think, to bring up because I'm going to make a general statement here, and then
Sure.
I'll back out of it, right? I think a lot of people, a lot of young people want to get into TV reporting because it's exciting to be on TV.
Yes.
What would you say to people who are like, I want to be a TV reporter for that reason? What are some of the things that they need to keep in mind before they get into that line of work?
And to add to what you're saying, typically what I find is they want to immediately become a news anchor. They haven't done any field reporting. They don't have any experience in the field, and they just want to land on the anchor desk. But it doesn't work like that. You still need to know the foundations of journalism, the who, what, where, when, why, and how. What story is newsworthy? You still need to research, secure the interviews with the right sources, get the right sound bites, and put a cohesive, newsworthy story together. You need to know all of that before you become a news anchor. Because when you're a news anchor, you're on the desk, you have to talk on the fly. You have to know what you're talking about. You need to know the players, the local elected officials. You need to know a lot and you need to be ready for it. And the best preparation is to be a field reporter. You need to know everything before you even consider a job like that.
Well, and you and I also know, having now you're a field reporter, I was a field reporter. The field is where the news is. The
Yes,
news is not
exactly.
in the newsroom or at the anchor
Correct.
desk.
Great point. Right. So we are chasing the news. We know what it takes to get the news and put those stories together. And that's a critical component. But once my students, and I've seen it time and time again, they will land an MMJ job, a multimedia journalist job. And a couple of years later, I see them anchoring. Some of them are at News 12, and they were my students. So that dream is possible to achieve, but you just have to take the proper steps in the right order, in my view.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean that's where you learn your chops. That's where you learn how to do TV right. Um,
Right. Yeah.
and frankly, interviewing techniques. I mean, let's just talk about, when you're interviewing a subject. And they're all different types of interviews, right? And I'll let you go into them. But
Mhm.
how do you go into, setting up that camera? You've got the microphone, you put it in somebody's face, and you're asking them the first question. How are you trying to walk your way through that interview to discover the information that's needed to make your story what you need it to be?
Great question. So in order for reporters and what we do at News 12 to put a story together, we need these key interviews to start off with. So we, in most cases, need a subject matter expert who's going to have expertise on a certain subject and can speak eloquently on camera. But we also need a human element to the story in most cases. So that means we need someone to interview who was directly impacted by that issue, by that subject, by that topic. If we don't have those interviews, it won't be a full story. Once we lock those interviews in place, now it comes down to the questioning. What I talk about a lot in my classes is every story has to have a focus, a main focus, whether it's a new data point, a new trend, something that's unique, whatever that focus is. All of your questions should go back to the focus of the story, especially when it comes to the subject matter expert. When you're interviewing the human side, the human element of the story, the person directly impacted, now you want to get into the how type of questions. How are you directly impacted by this story? How does this issue make you feel? And it's really important to use the how term because that elicits full sound bites. You don't want to ask questions that just give a yes or a no. So the way you tailor your questions will also help in terms of the responses that you get.
Great point there, because there's nothing worse than doing an interview with somebody and getting yes, no,
Right.
no.
Yes.
That just doesn't play.
That will not work. That will not work. So you have to tailor your questions in a way that will elicit these full responses, and you also have to ask the right questions. When I go into a story, I already know my top 3 questions. No matter what, I have to ask these 3 questions and I'm not leaving. Sometimes I have an interviewee that literally only has 5 minutes for me. So I'm going to ask those 3 questions and then I move on to the next location. So timing is also a factor, how much time you have and access to these interviewees.
I find that I do a fair share of interviewing in my work with clients because I'll shoot
Yes.
interviews for them as well. And so there I am doing the same job that you do, interviewing a subject. And I find that if I think in my head, if I can get a child to give me a full answer, then I'll just ask the question in the same way of an adult.
That
Because
is
kids
true.
are all yes, no answers, right? Because
Yeah.
their vocabulary is limited and then maybe they're a little nervous and all. Well, the 55-year-old guy is also nervous because there's
Right.
nothing weirder than having a camera stuck in your face.
Right. Exactly. That is true. That is true. And that's a good technique also.
Tell me a little bit about now talking with your students, because you teach students who want to go into both journalism and public relations. Tell me a little bit about that classroom environment. You've got students who are wanting to do both, one or the other. How are you teaching them? What questions are they asking of you? What are you discovering from them in terms of how they consume their news and where their focus is going into the future?
Sure. When it comes to my media ethics class, I have students of various majors. Could be a journalism major, public relations major, social media, marketing. So I need to cover media ethics for each of those industries, for each of those concentrations. And that's really how I break up the course. So the first month is all about journalism ethics. Then I transition into public relations ethics. And my students ask very good questions. Most of their questions are centered on digital, on social media, on artificial intelligence. How can we use AI and use it responsibly? And I talk about all of that. To me, AI is a partner now, and we can use it and we'll be using it more and more, but we still have to go back to the code of ethics and seeking truth, being accountable, being independent, and reporting it. So if we use AI as a partner, we have to do it in certain ways, and I go into those techniques. And I think a lot of students, as you mentioned earlier, they want to be on camera, but maybe they want to be on camera for the wrong reason. Do you want to be a storyteller? Because that's what your focus should be. Whether you're telling a story on digital, social media, for the newspaper, for television, if you want to be a storyteller and you learn the foundation and the ethics and you have the experience, you're going to become a great storyteller. You're going to become a great writer. And that's what I try to instill in my students.
let's drill down on the ethics question a little bit
Sure.
there, because I think it's one of those like quicksand areas where everybody thinks they know what it is, but then lots of people don't really know what it is. How do you describe ethics to your students, and what is your definition of ethics in journalism? And then we can get maybe to ethics in PR as well.
Sure. When it comes to journalism, ethics to me is responsible storytelling. And I point students to certain guides that we use. For example, the Society of Professional Journalists, SPJ, is an organization that has a code of ethics that journalists should be following. And it's an organization that helps journalists with their craft, enhance their craft, mentorship, and all of that. It's a great organization. So there's a one pager that anybody can find online, SPJ Code of Ethics, and it drills down into the most important points, in my view, of what responsible journalism is. Seeking truth and reporting it. We want to be fact checking. We want to be securing the right sources. We want to act independently, meaning no conflicts of interest. We want to be unbiased in our storytelling. We want to be accountable. We want to make sure that we're doing everything right in terms of our reporting and minimizing harm, making sure that we are not harming our subjects, obviously, but harming anybody that we're interacting with in the field. And under those pillars are other bullet points that drill down into other areas that reporters should be looking at in terms of their storytelling, in terms of their news coverage. That should be the foundation of any reporter. So I go into all of that in my media ethics course. When it comes to public relations, I point to organizations like the PRSA and their guidelines, talking about advocacy. What does that mean? And, that gray area, let's say, between advocacy and news and editorial and advertorials. And I break down the meanings of all of that, and they need to be cognizant of that. The other important point is that I believe the audience should know right away whether it's news, an advertisement, a sponsorship. That should be clear to the audience, whether it's through verbal delivery, whether it's through the story itself, a disclaimer, a social media button. That needs to be clear. You really need to be transparent with the audience.
Yeah, it's tough for me because, I grew up as you did in a newsroom, right? I mean,
Yes,
we know what news looks like and what news doesn't look like. We know the
right.
difference, like you said, between news and a paid advertisement of any shape or form. But lots of people don't. They
Yes,
really can't. It comes down to media literacy, I think. Lots of people just, there's no fault of their own. They just weren't trained that way. And so
right.
they can't, right? So are
And
there are
social
there things
media,
that people can like spot in
yes,
whether it's news or are there tells, are there giveaways that you teach?
yes, especially with social media. So when we first started using social media, there was this technique where people would put hashtag ad or hashtag sponsorship. And okay, that might have been okay in the beginning. It was a little bit confusing for people. And then that was done away with. And then the buttons, the sponsored buttons came about, and the sponsorship buttons that you would see prominently on a social media post. So I think the social media platforms themselves have gotten better and distinguishing between what is a sponsorship, what is an ad, and what is organic, real news. So those are certain signals that are important to look at in social media. And then on the news side, think about who's being quoted. Think about who is in your soundbite as a subject matter expert. And really think about the story. Is there a hidden agenda here? Is the headline of the story matching the body of the story? Or is this clickbait? Those types of signals will help audiences. And really, to your point, it's a little bit difficult sometimes to distinguish because there are gray areas and you really have to click on links, go to an original source, and who's originally reporting this story. So it takes some investigating for the layperson.
Something else I wanted to ask you about was
Sure.
in your function as a reporter. We hear a lot about this, both sides, all right, are giving equal time,
Mhm.
and what journalists are supposed to do and not supposed to do, or what, news outlets are supposed to do and not supposed to do. how do you approach when there's a story and there's quote unquote two sides to it? How do you approach presenting that? How do you approach pursuing telling the story in an ethical and responsible way?
Another excellent question. So I have transitioned from telling both sides of a story to telling all sides of a story. Because sometimes a story can have four different sides. There could be four players in that story that are impacted by that angle. So the first thing I want to do is I want to try to get every side on the record for my story. Sometimes that is not possible. At the very least, I'm going to reach out to every side and try to get a statement or an email, something that I can include. And if I cannot get one of the sides, I'm going to let the audience know that. We reached out to X agency. We asked for a comment, but we have not heard back yet. So that way the audience knows I have now looked at every angle of this story. I've tried to identify and get a comment from every player in this story, and I've done everything I can to exhaust this story. And that just adds to your credibility as a reporter and the way you are as an authority in the news field. And then people begin to respect you, more PR professionals pitch stories to you, and it's a great symmetry.
Do you ever, is it the responsibility of a news organization to reject a side of the story if the side that's being told, or the story that's being told by that side, is just completely bonkers? You know, like up is down, or the sky, you know, the sun is purple, or something factually ridiculous. Is a journalist required to include that perspective in a story? And I don't mean to put you on the spot here, because I mean, let me put it this way. I have an opinion. I remember working in newsrooms, and
Right.
you get phone calls from loonies, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
who
going to
would
sign
just,
it down.
right, because they got nothing better to do than to call the radio
Right,
station or whatever. It's
right.
fine, and you hang up the phone.
Yes,
When I transitioned to being a reporter, I felt it was my responsibility to, and I'm going to use the word reject, factually inaccurate statements that were completely disprovable, right? Like this, the sky is orange. That's a bad example because sometimes the sky's orange, but you know what I mean,
I know
right?
what
Like,
you mean.
you're bonkers, right? You don't
Right,
get to be included in my story because that's just bonkers.
right.
It's right. They're not backing it up with any facts. They're just saying stuff. And we're living in a world now where people are just saying stuff.
Right.
Are, what do you do as a reporter when you're faced with that?
And we have had instances of that. And we discuss as a team. And no matter what information we get, we do like to tell a tipster that we're going to look into it because that's doing our due diligence. But at the same time, if it's something that in the broad audience, nobody would believe, we're likely not going to include it in our story because then the audience will think, what kind of reporting is this? It just doesn't make sense. It happens rarely. Typically, we get substantive information that we look into, and sometimes it's inaccurate, sometimes it's not, but usually it's not of a silly nature, but time to time it happens.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
Yes,
good. And I give you a lot of credit for saying that, because that's not something that we discussed before. It was just sort of something that popped in my head here, and I wanted
no
to ask
problem.
you about it. That's great.
Sure, no
Well,
problem.
what we're going to round out our conversation here. What advice, since you're in front of young people all the time, and I know there's a lot of young people who listen to this podcast to get advice, to get guidance, is there advice that you can give to either young aspiring PR professionals or young aspiring journalists, or both, about where the job market is headed, what skills they need to develop, like where they need to be to start to get into the industry of their choice?
Sure, I'll start with PR. And I think these are helpful tips for those who are pitching the press. And newsrooms have changed dramatically. I mean, they're as busy as ever. We're receiving hundreds of email pitches a day. and we have to weed through them and find the ones that are newsworthy. So it's really important that the PR professionals understand that video is paramount. We need video. So if, let's say, we cannot send a news crew to your event, send us the video. Take horizontal phone video, about 15 seconds per shot, send us about 8 shots. And if it's a newsworthy story, we could possibly fit it into our program. So it's really important that PR professionals, just like we do, know the who, what, where, when, and why of their story and pitch that. And pitch the subject matter expert and hopefully have someone who can speak to the human side of it. And I think that will be helpful. In terms of whether it's PR or journalists, new ones who are trying to break into the field, you need to learn everything there is to know about digital storytelling. And that means if you're go on YouTube, go on TikTok, know all of the social media platforms, know how to edit video, know how to edit audio, know how to put consumable content together, learn how to shoot. If you have these multimedia skills, you can do so many things in communications, whether it's PR, journalism, social media, and make sure, I know this sounds very basic, put those skills on your resume. I tell my students, put those skills even high on your resume. Have a skills section, all of the multimedia skills that you know how to do, because that's going to help you. You may, let's say, land a job at a marketing firm and you are a digital storyteller for marketing campaigns. Well, you're still using storytelling techniques, but you have all of those digital capabilities, and now you can apply it to that job. So it's digital, multimedia. Also, for journalists, make sure that if you want to be on camera, learn how to be a one-person band journalist, because some newsrooms are shrinking. They don't have as many crews. So the 2-person band has now become a 1-person band, and you will be reporting, writing, shooting, and editing. A lot to learn, but it will be worth it.
It's a new world, right? And
Yes.
I mean, look, 25 years ago, I was in a newsroom and we were filling the fax machine and we were
Right.
turning over the toner and the printer, and they
That's
don't do
right.
that anymore. So yeah, it's just new tools and you got to learn how to surf it.
Yes. Yes. And
Awesome. Well, go ahead.
it's been great with my students too, because so many of them are just enjoying all of it and they want to learn. And they're savvy already, many of them online. So it's an easy transition for a lot of them.
Yeah, it's probably a lot easier for them than it is for us.
Yes, right.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your perspectives. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we are not done with you yet, however. We are going to segue now into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions meant to elicit a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. With your indulgence, Liz, Burke, let's begin with rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
Well, of course, I have to say News 12 Long Island. But now that I've been on TikTok, I have been looking at TikTok every morning because I'm following news outlets. And what I love is that they are taking key sound bites, key pieces of information, and making them into TikToks. So the news outlet TikToks are really informative. And it's especially helpful when you're on the go and you're trying to stay up to date on the news. So that's been great. I love it.
That sounds great. Rapid fire question number 2. What's your favorite social media platform? I think I know.
Instagram? Were you going to say Instagram?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to
Instagram.
say TikTok.
Oh, well, newly TikTok, but really Instagram, because I've been on it longer and I have a bigger following. And I love the visual components to it, and I find it very user friendly, and I'm more familiar with it. But ask me in a couple of years or next year, it'll be TikTok.
A couple of years, it may be something completely
Oh,
different.
that's right. It'll be a new social media platform that you and I will have to learn.
Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Definitely coffee every day, every morning. I actually grew up in a coffee drinking family. We would spend Saturdays, cousins, aunts, sitting in the kitchen, chatting, drinking coffee. Love it.
Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food?
Well, I am on the run often. And in field reporting, we are constantly going from location to location, and we're eating a lot in the news crew cars. So you want to eat something that's not messy. And I typically eat protein bars. I've been eating this new one, RX. It's a healthy protein bar. I try to eat in a nutritious way. So I have, the energy to report. So protein bars, easy to eat.
Sounds good. And rapid fire question. I remember those. I remember those days of on the run eating. Let me tell you,
Right?
way too much fast food. It was not good. Uh,
Yes. Yeah, I know that too. I try to avoid that.
yeah. Rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
My thought is to become a full-time content creator where I can teach budding journalists online how to become professional journalists. I think it takes a lot of my experience and expertise and capabilities and wraps it up into a good role for me that I can do online and share my knowledge with others. I absolutely love helping people. I love teaching, and I get so much satisfaction out of seeing people grow in their career and do well. I love following my students on LinkedIn and seeing their accomplishments. It's one of the greatest joys for me.
That sounds like a terrific plan. I love it, Liz. This has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Sure, social media, and my handle is Liz Burke, LizBurke TV. Instagram, TikTok. You can find me, Liz Burke, Burke, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and feel free to DM, comment. I'm always happy to help.
We absolutely will, and put everything in the show notes. Liz, thanks again. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.